The world is always watching. Security cameras, traffic feeds, facial recognition. Millions of unseen eyes track every movement, cataloging lives without a sound. Most people never think about it. Lena did. Her job in digital forensics meant hours spent combing through footage, fixing corrupted files, tracking down errors in the system. It was supposed to be routine, data glitches, pixelation, false positives in facial recognition. But then she found him. A man frozen in time, appearing in surveillance footage from different years, different locations, unchanged, unaged, always staring directly into the lens. It was an anomaly that shouldn't exist, a flaw in the system, except the system wasn't wrong. The deeper Lena dug, the stranger things became. The man wasn't just in old footage. He was there now, outside her apartment, near her office, in places he couldn't possibly be. And then the cameras turned, not just on the city, on her. And somewhere, just beyond the flickering screen, something that had always been watching, finally decided to step forward. Lena worked in digital forensics, tasked with analyzing anomalies in citywide surveillance systems. Most errors were mundane, glitches in facial recognition, corrupted timestamps. But one file stood out, a video loop from a street camera in 2008. A figure stood on the sidewalk, motionless, staring directly at the camera. The same figure appeared in footage from 2024, unchanged. Intrigued, Lena ran the images through AI-enhanced aging software. No deviation. The man, pale with an unsettlingly hollow expression, had not aged a day in 16 years. She extracted metadata and found something worse. This wasn't the only instance. Every year the same man appeared at different locations, always staring at a camera, always watching. Lena traced his last known appearance to an abandoned metro station. Against her better judgment, she went there at night, armed with nothing but her phone. The platform was empty, save for a flickering screen displaying live feeds from various parts of the city. Then the cameras all shifted at once. Every single feed now showed the same man standing in front of them, staring. And then Lena saw herself in one of the screens. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, the silent watcher had finally moved. Lena spun around, heart hammering in her chest. The platform remained empty. The air felt unnaturally still, thick with the kind of silence that suggested the world was holding its breath. Yet the screen still displayed her reflection, and him. She stepped backward, eyes scanning every shadow. The man had been right. Behind her, but now he was gone. Or had he ever been there at all? The live feeds flickered. The figure appeared again, this time in multiple locations. One frame showed him outside her apartment, another by the entrance of her office. In yet another, he stood at the coffee shop she visited every morning. Lena's pulse pounded. Someone had to be manipulating the footage. There was no way he could be in all those places at once. But if the surveillance systems were compromised, how deep did this go? Who else was watching? A metallic screech echoed through the tunnel. Lena flinched. The old station had been decommissioned years ago, the tracks long abandoned. But something was moving in the darkness beyond the platform. She took a hesitant step forward, raising her phone's flashlight. The beam cut through the gloom, illuminating dust-covered tracks and old graffiti. Then she saw them. Not just one man, but dozens, identical. Each pale, motionless, staring. Some stood between the rusted rails. Others crouched against the walls, half hidden in the dark. Their heads tilted in unison as she met their gaze. The air turned electric, with an unspoken awareness, like an unseen presence had been waiting for her to see them. Lena stumbled back, the flashlight trembling in her grip. "Who are you?" she whispered, voice barely above a breath. Silence. Then one of them, the one from the cameras, the original, took a single step forward. His lips parted, as if to speak. The metro station lights flickered and went out. Darkness swallowed her. Lena ran. She didn't care where, as long as it was away from whatever she had just seen. The only light now came from her phone, casting jittery shadows as she sprinted back toward the exit. But the corridor stretched longer. Then she remembered. The air grew thick, pressing against her like an invisible force trying to slow her down. Her breath came in ragged gasps. Then, the screens lining the tunnel blinked to life again. Every single one showed her own frantic face. She slowed, dread curling in her stomach. The footage wasn't from security cameras anymore. It was from angles impossible to exist. Above her, behind her, right next to her. As if something unseen was filming her in real time. A whisper drifted through the air, faint and inhuman. She turned the volume up on her phone, heart hammering. The audio feed from the surveillance system crackled with static. Then came a voice, layered and distorted, as if multiple people were speaking at once. "You have seen us." Lena froze. The whispering continued. "We watch the watchers." The air shifted. She felt something move behind her, the presence so close she could feel the cold radiating from it. The breath caught in her throat. Summoning every ounce of courage, she turned around. The silent watchers stood mere inches away. What happened next, Lena could never fully explain. The figures didn't move like people. They flickered, like corrupted pixels in a glitched video. Her body screamed at her to run, but her limbs wouldn't obey. The nearest one reached out, fingers elongating impossibly, touching her temple. A flood of images crashed into her mind. Cities, endless and empty. Dark streets with no sun, doomed only an eternal watching. She saw herself through countless lenses, a life observed but never truly lived. And beyond it all, a presence, something vast and unfathomable lurking behind every camera, every reflection. She was not the first to see them, but she was the first they had allowed this close. And now she understood. The watchers had always been there, not watching the world, but watching those who watched it. The moment broke. Lena gasped, collapsing to the floor as the figures flickered out of existence. The station lights surged back on. The screens displayed nothing but static. She staggered, to her feet, her head spinning. Had any of it been real, or had she stumbled into something she was never meant to see? Her phone buzzed. A new notification. A video file, timestamped just seconds ago. With trembling fingers, she played it. It was her, standing in the abandoned station, staring blankly into the camera. And behind her, just barely visible in the flickering light, they were still watching. Lena left digital forensics the next day. She moved to a small town with no surveillance network, no citywide AI monitoring. She abandoned every piece of technology that could see her. But at night, she still felt them. Watching. Waiting. And sometimes, when she passed by darkened windows, or old security cameras that shouldn't be on, she saw her own reflection, and behind it the silent watchers remained.